Hey, this is Karen Gordon, the Self-Healing Coach.
And this is Ann Baroque, Certified Nutritional Consultant and Naturopath.
So I was thinking that today would be good to talk about what my experience was like when I first discovered you and started on the diet. I thought that might be interesting. And, for me, I was diagnosed in 2007, but I was sick for an entire decade before I was diagnosed. And when I finally got, the words, "you have MS," it was a huge relief in a way because I had a name to this mysterious illness that I had. But at the same time, it was also sort of horrifying because when I looked at the MS community, it was like all I saw were pictures of people in wheelchairs. And, it was like there was really no sense that there was any hope. It was just a matter of, how long it was going to take till my ultimate demise. And that is unfortunately what the primary story is in the MS culture is, you can't heal this. This is debilitating. This is degenerative. And you're kind of screwed. And, I wasn't willing to accept that. That's not okay. I'm not going to live like that. So the first thing I did was I went to the computer and I Googled healing MS. And what came up was Ann Baroque, Healing Multiple Sclerosis, the book. And I looked it up on Amazon or maybe it was Barnes & Noble because I remember calling the bookstore and I was like, my heart was racing. And this is like really what happened. And I was calling the bookstore and I was like, my local store, and I said, do you have this? And they said yes. And I ran, I got in the car and immediately ran. And I got to the section and I saw your book and I actually have it right here, the blue and white book, and I'll never forget it. And I saw, but this is really powerful because look at the words on this book. This is a printed book that's published in the bookstore and it says Healing Multiple Sclerosis. And to me, that was all that I needed. I was like, okay, somebody did it. Somebody published it. Somebody put it in a bookstore. That means it's doable. That means I can do it. And it was literally, it saved my life. I don't know how I would have gotten through that time if I didn't find this book. And then what was really exciting was reading the book and then getting to the part where I realized that you actually had a private practice in LA and that I could get a phone session with you and you were accessible. And I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. And then, we had our first phone session. I remember, I think it took 2 weeks before I could actually meet with you because you're so busy. And I just remember waiting and just everything hinged on that first meeting. And I didn't know what you were going to be like. And, we got on the phone and I realized that you were totally type A. You were like, okay, here's how it is. Tell me what's going on. Are you doing this? Are you doing that? Are you doing that? What's happening with this? Okay, here's the plan. And then he just laid it out. And, it was really overwhelming at first, but it was extremely empowering because you gave me something to do. You gave me a plan. You gave me a map. And the destination was recovery. And that was just tremendous.
And so then once you felt all of that and took in the education and what you needed to know, how did you find, let's just say the first year, how was that for you to implement everything and create a lifestyle change for yourself?
It was major. It was definitely hard. It was definitely hard. I had a lot of stuff going on in my personal life. I'm a photographer and I had just expanded my photography business into a studio and I just hired a whole staff and got my diagnosis a week later. So it was definitely not a very, easy time. We were talking about this. I don't know if it was earlier today or recently we were talking about, the kind of perversions you can develop on a diet like this. And, for me, I developed a lot of them at first. I did things that I probably, shouldn't have really done or that I knew weren't right. And I would say to myself, I know in my next session with Ann, she's going to tell me not to eat this. But until my next session, until she says those words, I'm going to eat this. And, I was eating a lot of brown rice pasta and a lot of things that I'm really not supposed to eat necessarily. But, looking back on it, I actually was making tremendous progress because I was beginning to move from a place where food was just something I had to do to survive to really paying attention to it and thinking about what was good to put in my body and how it would actually serve my body, and making it something that I enjoyed. And it didn't happen overnight. It was something that took time. And, you know, now looking back 4 years to now, I've made tremendous progress. I actually really enjoy cooking now. And 4 years ago, I didn't even know. Yeah.
I was going to say, did you make the connection, which is important, is that on the times when you did veer off to, let's say, your perversions and things, but when you did fall off, you made that connection for yourself and how you became symptomatic, did you not?
Absolutely.
Meaning the relationship to food. So if you're eating sugar, you started to do that, you did make that connection, correct?
Absolutely. And it was hard because I proved the effectiveness of it over and over again. You know, I proved it to myself. I would eat things I'm not supposed to eat, and I would feel symptomatic, and I would go, damn it, this really does work. You know, and which is a good thing.
And that's key. Because, yeah. Well, I wanted you to make that connection, and that's really the key, is that once I lay out a roadmap for someone, I want you to experience it so that you become your own best doctor, and you really realize that. You know, I have a client that I just spoke to the other day that said she has MS, and she said, you know, sugar is pain. If I want to stay out of pain, I have to stay off the sugar. And she will test it, and she finally said, I've had enough. And sometimes it takes a few go-arounds, but you start to make it so that you don't really need someone telling you you have that knowingness. And that's what I really want people to become empowered with, is to be in touch with their body and their food.
And it's such an empowerment, because I remember going to my neurologist, early on in being on the diet. Maybe I was on it for 3 or 4 months. And he told me that diet had nothing to do with it. And I'm just like, you can't tell me that. I have proof. I have proof over and over again in my body. It's incontrovertible. You can't tell me that, you know, it's not a theory. It's not something in a book. I proved it to myself over and over and over again. When I eat this way, I become symptomatic. When I eat, you know, healthy, my symptoms go away.